Hey there, welcome to my channel. My name is Linda. I've got some fun DIY crafts coming your way today. So what are we waiting for? Let's get started. Today we're going to look back at 10 of my favorite farmhouse rustic pumpkin projects from last year, 2022. So let's get started with project number 1. For this project, I'm going to be using a 4x4 piece of wood, and then I'm going to, this measures just about 8 inches tall, and then I'm going to use a bunch of paint sticks, and I'm going to cut them down to fit the sides of this wood. And I also have this little trim piece. You could use just a regular dowel if you want, like a round dowel, but you know, this kind of fits in corners. So, and I just had, it was like $2 for an 8-foot piece. So here's my paint sticks cut down where I'm going to put 3 paint sticks on each long side of this piece of wood, and then 4, of course, of those little trim pieces to fit in the corners, and a little stem. And I'll glue that stem on like later. So using wood glue here, I'm going to show you just a little bit, and of course, you know, magic of camera, it will be all done. Just placing my paint sticks on here. I thought this would be cute and kind of look like, even though it will still look square, it will give us like ridges to kind of look like a pumpkin when it's done. And 3 paint sticks on this wood fit perfectly. I mean, I just lucked out. I had the idea and found this piece, and I tried it with some paint sticks to see, and just like I said, lucked out. They fit perfectly. And I was like, what am I going to put in that corner? I'm like, oh, I've got those trim pieces. And again, lucked out. It fits perfectly. It was just meant to be a pumpkin when we're done. So I've got all of these on, and as you can see, there's a little spacing in the corners there. And so just add some wood glue again in the corners and just pop these in. But again, you can just use dowels. They might stick out a little bit more, but you know, whatever. A smaller dowel might fit in there, a little tinier one, just to kind of cover that up. Add a little glue here and get our last one in. Just fits perfect. And like I said, I'll go ahead and put my stem on later. Okay, and that stem is from a piece of the wood handle off of a Dollar Tree plunger. I'm going to use Dixie Belle chalk paint here in the color terracotta. I love this shade of orange, and I'm just going to paint this whole entire block. I'll of course just show you a little bit, fast forward it a little bit. Yeah, I just love this color. It's just like a brownish orange. And then what I want to do is I want to go ahead. I'm taking my craft knife here and my ruler. And as you can see, I'm just going right in the grooves where those paint sticks come together, just to kind of help add more definition. Because I kind of want these to look, like segments of a pumpkin, even though it's going to be square. And so here's what it looks like when I'm all done, just giving that more definition. And so the next spot here, I went outside and I sanded it with my electric sander. I have added the glue on. And so these are some of the things we're going to be using here. This is raffia from Dollar Tree. This is grapevine wire I get from Hobby Lobby. Some leaves and burlap trim from Dollar Tree. Some of this, my favorite crochet trim from Dollar Tree. This trim I got from Walmart. So for my leaves, what I did, I just cut shapes just like this out of those bigger leaves, because I just wanted a couple little small shape leaves. I'm going to use this. This is like Waverly duck fabric. It's really thick and stiff, almost like a canvas. It does kind of print on crooked sometimes, but I'm okay with that. What I do is I put a piece of tape across the top, and it might not work on all printers. I just have an LCP, literally $30 HP inkjet printer. I put the tape across the top so that the rollers will grab it and it pulls it through. And of course, I will have a link in my description box for a couple of printables we're going to be using today, and this will be one of them. But you know what? Even though it prints crooked, you can cut that out and make it look straight. So this is what it looks like once I cut one out. I'm going to use this sign. It was already in my supply. I bought it this way. And what I'm going to do is put this cute little fabric tag onto that sign. But you all know I like to take my stuff to the sewing machine. So, my fabrics and my papers and things like that. So I'm just going to sew around this tag just a couple of times. I'm not going to be really neat with the stitches or anything like that. I want it to look kind of rustic and country and wonky a little bit. So I'm not paying it. See, it's not straight. I like it like that. If you're not a sewer, what you can do, which is what I'll do next here, is, on your fabric, go around, kind of pull on the threads around the end and kind of, fray it and distress it up like that. That will give it that country, rustic texture as well. I'm going to sew on on my leaves as well on this burlap. You don't see it a whole lot because I just left the brown thread in there that I did on that fabric piece. If I'd went to white or something, you'd probably see a little better. But I know it's there. It's in my brain. I know I did it. So again, you don't have to do that, of course, if you're not a sewer. See, it's just real subtle. But again, go ahead. You can pull around the leaves and stuff after you've cut them out and just dress them up a little bit that way. If you don't sew, it's perfectly wonderful. I just like to show you some more options. I'm going to be using Beacon Fabri-Tac glue throughout all my projects today. It is my glue of choice. You can use hot glue. It's perfectly wonderful. I've got that grapevine wire kind of curled around my stem the way I want it. I'm just going to glue it into place. I'm not worried that my glue shows here because we will cover that up with some moss here. This moss I get at Walmart. It comes in a great big bag. I love it because it's big, long, like really moist pieces. It's not that dry, crinkly stuff from Dollar Tree, although I have that. You can use either one, but I like this a little better. It allows me to kind of hang it over the edges and stuff like that. So raffia, I've curled it here. A curling iron, take the raffia and twirl it around the curling iron. It works wonderfully. The only thing I noticed is it doesn't stay a tight curl. It does loosen up over time. As you'll see in the final look, it kind of pulls down and loosens, but the curl is still there. So I've glued my little burlap leaves on. Now I'm going to come in and kind of glue my raffia on here. I've tied a little piece of raffia in the middle to keep it together. And I'm just going to kind of put it behind one of the leaves so it goes over the front and over the side. And then I'm going to add in just a little, acorn and leaf pick here from a pick. Add in a little bit of that fabric or that trim from Dollar Tree. We're going to take our little sign here. I'm going to just go ahead, just going to glue our little quote on here. If you, the fabric doesn't run through your printer okay, just print these out onto like cardstock and cut, cardstock out. It will work wonderful. I'm taking that thin twine and that other ribbon. I've tied them both into a bow. I'm just kind of gluing them together right in front of that other little ensemble there. And I'm going to use a safety pin here to attach this to the crochet bow because it's not going to be seen anyway. Go ahead and now glue that up onto that other bow ensemble there. And then to finish it off, this is just a little pumpkin off of a pick from Dollar Tree. I'm going to glue it right in the center of that bow area, and that makes this project complete. Let's move on to project number 2. I'm going to be using this batting that I got from Walmart. You can buy it by the yard. And then I'm also going to be using this pumpkin pattern I had cut out of cardboard a few years ago. It's 18.5 inches in diameter. And of course, I already cut my fabric out using this pattern. And then I'm going to be using this chunky chenille yarn also that I got at Walmart. It's about $6 a skein. You don't quite use the whole thing, but we're going to make it fun. I'm going to start by using some of this fishing line. Now you can use yarn or crochet thread or whatever you want. It's a 30-pound test. That doesn't really matter, but I like to use fishing yarn because I do stuff my pumpkins very tightly. And I know I've shown this on lots of my videos, but I never know, of course, if someone new's coming in to check things out. I use either these yarn darner needles that you can get from Walmart, under $2 for 7 needles, or even this one that says doll needles on it. It's 5 of them, again, under $2 for a pack. I get them because of the large eye opening there to be able to get this fishing line through. And now I use fishing line because it does not break when I stuff my pumpkins so tight. So I'm going to start off by tying one end into several knots here because fishing line is really, really, really slick. So I tie a ton of knots here, about 5 or 6. And then I'll grab some little pliers here and just pull it really, 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 really tight so our knot will not slide out. Okay, now what I'm going to do is we're going to start from one side here. I'm going to poke our needle about 1/2 inch from the top, and I'm going to go about probably a 1/2 inch length in stitches. And you can see I'm not all the way going out with my needle. I'm leaving part poked out so I can immediately come back in to the fabric. And you can see about a 1/2 inch part. Now those stitches, if they get wider or close together, perfectly fine. And what I'm going to do is go back through with my needle to the back of the fabric and then bring it right back through to the front of the fabric. To the back of the fabric, right back through to the front of the fabric. As you can see here, we're kind of doing a little pleating action here. This is like a gathering stitch so that we can gather our pumpkin together and close it once the stitches are all the way around our shape here. To the front, again, back to the front. And I just do however many I want, you know, till my needle kind of gets full. Front to the back. Back to the front, just like that, all the way around. And then once I've got, you know, I think how many is on here, 6 or 7, I just go ahead and pull it all the way till I reach the end of my knot on my fishing line. Continue this process. I'll do the rest off camera till I come right close to my knot, and I'll show you kind of how I finish it off. Here I'm close to my knot, so I'm going to do a little bit more pleating. Okay, just like that, you can see I'm about a 1/2 inch away from my knot there. I'm going to go ahead and pull this through, and then I'm going to go ahead and pull my needle off of that fishing line. Again, you can use yarn or crochet thread if you don't stuff pumpkins really tight. Then I'm going to pull that knot there. I'm going to pull that out so it becomes really long as my other piece of fishing line there. Okay, that way it doesn't come out. All right, doesn't, you know, the stitches don't come off of the fishing line. And then I'm just going to come in and stuff it. Now I'm actually using this snow glimmer blanket thing that I got at a garage sale. I think it's for Christmas because you can see all the glitter in it. But you know what the heck, it's stuffing, right? So I'm going to go ahead and stuff my pillow, kind of for like $1 for this whole bag. I mean, that's just cheap. You can use which I often do. I buy pillows at like Walmart or our other local store and use that for stuffing as well. Just kind of, you know, poofing my pumpkin here to see how much more stuffing I'm going to need in there. Once I get to where I want an opening of about, you know, 2.5 to 3 inches, just somewhere in there. And then I'm going to tie a bunch of knots again with my fishing line to secure that in place. We want a nice opening here, okay? I tie about, 7 or 8 knots here, of course. And then I cut off the excess. I leave the tails kind of long again, so just for me, so it doesn't slip out. And then we're going to come around to the bottom side here. I know this is weird, but I'm using a Sharpie to kind of mark a nice large hole here. I'm going to cut that felt off because we want a gathering on the bottom like we had on the top. And I'm coming back in with my needle. Doesn't have to be nice and neat. Back in with my needle and fishing line, and I'm doing that gathering stitch again. Okay, and I'm going to bring it all the way around, in and out. We just did this on top, so it should be easy. I'm going to go all the way around till I get back again to my knot here. Kind of fast forward it for you. And I'm going to do the same process. Pull my needle off the edge, get my knot section there and pull that out so they're both about the same length, nice and long tails. I'll probably have to pull some stuffing out here. It's kind of full. See, I'm just a little bit over what I have on top. I'm about a 3-inch opening here. That's perfectly wonderful. And then I'm going to go ahead and tie my knots here and cut off the excess and tuck the rest inside. So now we have a opening on the front or the top and the bottom. Just like that. I know it's funny, but believe me, it'll be cool in the end. So we're going to take that chunky yarn. The first thing I'm going to do is just decide I'm going to come around my pumpkin and see how long I need it, just till it kind of meets in the middle. All right, and then I'm going to start cutting all my pieces that length. And I end up with about 35 pairs of yarn, so because I counted how many things went around. You can see them all cut here. And what we're going to do, so you have about 70 individual pieces, 2 pieces to a pair, right? So we're just going to put a little glue on the top and bottom. You can use hot glue here, and I'm going to kind of pinch it together. So we have a little kind of circle there, and pinch our top and bottom together and set it aside. And I'm going to do this on all my little pieces here. Again, like I said, I ended up with about 35 pairs of yarn here by the time I got all my 2 pieces glued together. And then we're just going to twist it just like that, okay? And we're going to be able to tuck it into, I'm going to twist a little bit more here. We're going to tuck it. This is why we got a top and bottom piece, because we need that bottom opening to be able to tuck the yarn in. Okay, so we're going to glue it in there with Fabri-Tac or hot glue, and then we're going to come to the top and glue that into that opening, and then we're going to do another one. I'm not going to do all of them, but I'm going to just show you here. Again, twist, just gluing right next to that first one we placed. And these holes will get filled up with this yarn, promise. And then glue it right next to the place on the bottom. And then I want to make sure that they're kind of stay together in the middle between each set, you know, so I'm just going to add a little glue here and push them together so you don't see any of the spacing or see any of the batting underneath. I'm going to do another one here. I glued it first this time and twisted, so whatever, process works best for you, it doesn't matter. I just love the texture on this pumpkin by making it look twisted and kind of braided. Okay, I'll go ahead and glue this one to the one previous to it. Again, to kind of cover that batting down below so you don't see that. And then I'm going to come along to the other side and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do the opposite side. I'll show you 3 here and then I'll do the rest off camera. Now, you don't have to do it like I'm doing here. It was just easier for me to kind of do, 3 on one side and then come directly across and do 3 on the other side. And then in the spaces between those 2 sections, I do the same thing and then I just start filling it in. But however easy you want, you can just go from wherever you start and just work yourself all the way around in one continuous motion. I just found it kind of easier to do it this way. To get everything, into position and be able to kind of fill in this stuff. It just kind of worked nicer and easier for my brain. So however you want to get these on there, any way you do it's going to work great. And as you see on the top, I leave that opening kind of in the center, and on the bottom I'm making sure I bring them all together. So see, I left an opening, and on the bottom I'm making sure my pieces are joining up together. But we need that hole there because as you're tucking this chunky yarn and you're coming around, you need to be able to tuck that yarn kind of down into that batting to make room for the next layer of yarn, so that way it's not too chunky on the bottom and our pumpkin doesn't stand up. It looks nice and flat on the bottom as it does right here. So you need that opening in the bottom to be able to tuck all that chunky yarn into. But as you see, the top is open, and what I'm going to do, I've just got a piece of a spindle here that I cut off. You can use anything for the top. I've sanded it because I didn't want it such a dark brown color. You can use a stick from the backyard or a piece of wood, whatever. Just use my Beacon Fabric glue and glue that inside. And then I'm going to use this wire jute cord from Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to get this into position and kind of twirl it around my stem and let it kind of hang off of the top edge to give it some personality, and then I'll just glue it in again with my Beacon Fabric glue. And then I'm going to add a bunch of glue right around the area where that batting still shows, so I can cover all that batting up with some moss here. And I do add quite a bit. I just show a little bit on camera, but you'll see in the next step there's like a ton of moss. But that's because I wanted a ton. But that's how we'll cover up that batting. You can see there what it looks like. Now I've just got a couple of leaves here that came off of a pick from a Dollar Tree. And then I've got this really super pretty kind of plaid brown ribbon I got from Hobby Lobby. I'm going to glue that right up against those leaves. And then I've got this rope. I don't remember where I got it, but I'm going to tie a knot in the center so it gives me some gluing room. And I kind of shredded the bottom. Off camera, you'll see in the final looks where at the bottom I decided to tie a little knot at the end of each tail of this rope. I thought that looked a little better. And then I've got just a piece of this ripped fabric I had laying on my craft fabric pile or whatever. I tied a knot in it so I could glue that on there, just to add some texture, and then I add some raffia there. And then I found these cupcake picks from Dollar Tree. They're little acorns. They have pumpkins, acorns, and sunflowers. Yes, I bought them all. And I'm going to just kind of make those shorter. I'm going to break off because I don't need so much of the wood down there on the bottom. And then I'm just kind of sanding it to distress them a little bit. And then I'm going to use these spirally things that came in this little decorative pack from Dollar Tree. And I'm going to use some of these velvet pumpkins also from Dollar Tree. And we're going to go ahead and get our pumpkins right up over that raffia. See which space I want it here and where I need to add glue. Get our 2 pumpkins kind of squeezed together here, just like that. And then we're going to add in those little cute curly Q things. Those make cute little pumpkin tendrils, don't they? I just love it. So I'll add kind of 1 on each side here. And you could even like stain these too if you wanted them a darker color or something like that. Then I'm going to add in those cute little acorn picks. Off camera, I do add in some like beaded pine cones I got at Hobby Lobby. I'm also going to add a little quote here I printed out onto fabric. I'll make sure I have the free printable for you. Link in my description box. So what I did is I cut out that fabric in a circle and sewed around the edges, of course, and glued it onto this little wood slice. And then I'm going to take this wood slice and glue it right up under the pumpkins. And then that makes this project complete. Let's move on to project number 3. For this project, I'm using some salvage wood pieces here. I've got a stem, I've got 2 pieces for the back for support, I've got a base and 2 pieces for the main pumpkin. What I'm going to do is go ahead and sand everything up and make it all nice and smooth. But before I do that, on the top piece of the pumpkin body, I'm going to take my jigsaw, I just do it off camera, and I'm just going to cut off this rounded edge area here. And this is what everything looks like after it's cut and sanded, ready to go. I love the splits and things in the wood. They're just awesome for this rustic look. So here I am. I'm just using some wood glue for my 2 pieces on the back. And I'm just gluing them with space in the middle so that you don't see them from the front. And then I'll glue the pumpkin once those are set to the base. Now the pumpkin, those are like 2x4 size pieces of wood, just so you know what those, how thick they are. And then I'm going to go ahead and use the wood glue and glue the stem onto the front. While that's setting up, I've got this rusty wire here. I rusted myself. I'll put a link down in my description box on how to do it. It's really thin wire, but what I thought I'd do is just kind of make it look like barbed wire. It's the wire used from Dollar Tree. I wish it was a little thicker, but this works. So what I'm doing is just taking little pieces of wire and just kind of spacing in between, and then just wrapping it around like a barbed wire would, just like this, and then just kind of cut off the excess. And I just did like one long piece, and then later I need a little bit more, so I did another little short piece. In the end, this is what it looks like, and don't you love the rust on my fingers? But I thought it would just give the facade of that cute rusty wire look. So here's my pumpkin ready to go. Everything's all set. I even went ahead and added some nails in the back too, just to make sure it's nice and sturdy. And I'm going to use this from Dollar Tree. I took the star off the front. I'm going to use Dixie Belle chalk paint in the color drop cloth, Dixie Belle chalk paint in the color terracotta, and then Dixie Belle chalk paint in the color chocolate for this project. For the terracotta, I'm just doing the front of the pumpkin, and you can see I'm not going to the edge. I'm just kind of staying in the center. Here's the chocolate I'm using. I'm doing the same thing on the stem. I'm just kind of staying in the center. And then what I'll do off camera once it's dry is I sand and distress it all up. I just want a hint of color. And then I'm using that drop cloth and painting the star, of course. Here's everything all sanded up. I'm using some moss here, my Fabri-Tac glue. I'm just going to kind of add it to the right side of the pumpkin here. And then I cut this leaf from these burlap leaves from Dollar Tree. I just kind of cut that shape out. And then I have this phrase that I printed on to some fabric from my cheapy little HP DeskJet inkjet printer. I will have a link to my printable for this down in the description box for you, for these pumpkin patch words, bunch of different fall words that are, you know, big like this. So if you want to print them out on cardstock, that kind of thing works great. And I'm just sewing on the fabric here just to kind of give it a little bit of personality. And then I'm going to pull on the threads around the fabric just to distress it up a little bit. And then this is what it looks like. Nice and cute, gives us our rustic look. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to sew on this burlap leaf as well. And on the burlap leaf, I kind of go around twice. It's really subtle. You don't see it a whole lot, but I know it's there, and it just gives it a little bit of personality. Here's what that looks like. What I'm going to do is take this, our little, you know, facade barbed wire here, wrap it around the bottom, and I'm just going to kind of add a little glue down here and some pliers and kind of tuck it right up underneath a little ledge there so it's nice and secure, and just kind of wrap it up around that moss and around the stem a little bit, see where I want it, get my star into position just so it shows just a little bit. And then I'll go ahead and glue that star down. I'll add a little more barbed wire here in just a little bit. Nice and easy, real simple project. And then I'm just taking our little fabric quote, just kind of gluing it in 2 sides so that it has just a little space in the center. I don't want it flat on the star. I want it raised up a little bit. And I'm kind of gluing down that little barbed wire and that leaf. Go ahead and glue down a little bit of this mesh tubing that you can buy in a package at Dollar Tree. And then some pip berries here. I'm going to glue that down, all kind of right at the base of that stem there. And then I've got a twine bow. I'm going to glue that. I've got really long tails because I want to kind of let the tails go down the pumpkin, and I'll glue those into place a little bit. Put them where I want them, kind of glue them up and under so they kind of just have that cute little whimsical look. And then I'm going to glue in, I've taken some fabric that I've ripped up. Now I know it's kind of a burgundy plaid, but burgundy works, right? We're going to add that here in a little bit. I'm going to add some more. Here's another little piece of barbed wire I made. I wanted a little bit more around the star. And then here's my ripped fabric I tied into a bow. It matches, it's fall. And I'm going to kind of glue these into position where I want, just kind of like I did the twine, so it's kind of nice and whimsical. I love how this turns out. Love how it turns out. Once I get that glued on, that makes this super duper cute salvage wood rustic pumpkin complete. Let's move on to project number 4. For this project, I'm using some of this fabric I got at Dollar Tree, and I'm just making a little slit in my fabric about 8.5 inches in, and I'm going to just rip down that fabric, and then I'm going to turn my fabric and measure another about 8.5 inches and cut a slit and rip that as well. So I have about, of course, a little ripped 8.5 inch by 8.5 inch square piece. You don't have to rip your fabric, you can just cut it into a square. I'm going to use these little treat cups I got from Joann's. They were $6.49, but I got them half off. I like them because they were stiff. If you don't have these, Walmart has these like jumbo cupcake liners that would work great. My inspiration for my handmade pumpkin was this one because I love how kind of thick it was on one end and thin on the other. So I'm just taking a big piece of paper. I shouldn't have ripped it. I should have left it on there. But I'm just kind of forming it because I grabbed the other little sheet here in a minute. I'm forming it into kind of that shape of a pumpkin. Thick on one side, thin on the other. This is kind of what it looks like. I know it looks funny, but I want this to look kind of beat up and, you know, rustic looking, of course. And then I'm just going to use my Beacon Fabric Tack glue and just start to wrap my little paper pumpkin shape in the fabric, of course. I'm kind of, pulling and pleating the fabric up as I go around, and it'll just gives us that cute little rustic pumpkin like I'm trying to tell you I want to create, and so I am doing so right here. See the process all the way around, coming to the end. Just pull it up, no rhyme or reason, just pull it up and get it covered. The little wrinkles will help kind of give it that cute little, segment shape type thing, segments in our pumpkins. Perfect. Had to cut a little excess off here, and then I'll get that glued in as well. Wonderful. Here's what it looks like once I get it all together. Cute, that looks cute. Thick on one end, thin on the other, worked perfectly. I like it. I'm going to use this Distress Oxide ink. You can get it at the scrapbook section, and it's just a brown ink, and I'm just using this little tool here to kind of rustic up my little muffin pan thing here, treat pan, inside and out. Just so this project is going to be kind of like a nice primitive looking project. This little tag I printed out onto some cardstock. I'll leave the font listed in my description box. I use my Microsoft Publisher, and then I sewed around the edges of it, and then I'm kind of distressing it with ink. Adding some Fabri-Tac glue in my muffin pan here. I'm going to kind of line it with some brown moss here I get at Walmart. And then I'm going to use cinnamon sticks here for a stem. I've cut it to fit as long as I want it. I'm going to glue it in. It'll kind of fall over, but then I'm going to add some more glue here and some more moss, and it'll kind of help that stem to stay up into place. Perfect. I love how this turns out. Nice primitive rustic looking little pumpkin. I've got 3 buttons here, 3 different sizes, so I can stack them, and I'm just taking some more of that ink, and I'm just kind of inking and distressing them up a little bit. We're going to use this on our tag here in a minute. Thought I'd just give it a little fun personality to it. And then I'm going to use, again, some of this paper covered wire, a big long piece, just kind of wrap it around the handle of a paintbrush to give us some squiggles. And I've got some rusty bells. Again, I rusted them myself. And again, that link will be in the description box down below. And I'm just kind of twisting them onto the end of that paper covered wire. All right. And then I'm going to come in. Here's a rusty safety pin. Again, you can rust it yourself. And I'm going to add the buttons on in order from smallest to largest. And I'm going to put it through the corner of the tag here and then into the center of a twine bow I made. Here's what it looks like. And then I'm going to go ahead and glue down our little rusty bell wire. And then this is just some other little rusty wire like we used in our salvage wood pumpkin. I twirled that up and I'm going to glue that in as well. Perfect. And we're going to glue down, this is some thin twine. I took 2 of them and tied a little bow. And then we're going to take the bigger twine tag ensemble and glue right on top. Perfectly cute. And I'm going to use this multi-purpose adhesive and some pumpkin pie spice. Make it smell good. I'm going to spray the adhesive on, shake on a little pumpkin pie spice. You could use cinnamon, of course, but it's a pumpkin muffin, so I wanted pumpkin pie spice. I'll kind of tap off the excess, and then I'll go ahead and wrinkle up the tag a little bit. I do add a little bit of that pumpkin pie spice off camera. You'll see that in the final looks. Just dressing up that wrinkle a little bit more, and then I'll go ahead and glue the muffin to the little treat pan here, and that makes this project complete. Let's move on to project number 5. For this project, I'm going to use these 2 different shape monogram pumpkins I got at Dollar Tree last year. I think now I saw on their website they have them without the monogram, so that would be nice. I've got the tops pulled off already, and then this pumpkin shape in my supply, I do not remember where I got that from, and then this sign from Dollar Tree. So what I've got here, I'm going to use some scrapbook paper here. These are all the papers I've picked out. You can kind of see them going in that burnt orange tones and brown shades here. I've got like 5 different patterns here I'm going to be using. And so what I've done to prep off camera is I have sanded everything up around the edges, taken the bows off and everything. On the taller pumpkin, I'm going to use that centerpiece, but on the shorter one, I'm not, and everything is ready to go. So first thing we're going to do, Dixie Belle chalk paint in the color terracotta for those 2 pieces. And for this one, I'm going to be using the chocolate shade Dixie Belle chalk paint. And for this one, I'm going to be using my drop cloth shade Dixie Belle chalk paint, of course. Before I paint everything up, I'm going to go ahead and trace the front and back of all my pieces. I want to cover the front and back. You can see I've sanded around the edges of all my wood shapes because I do like a little bit of my wood shapes to show. I will cut and trace my paper so they are a little bit shy of the perimeter of each piece of wood we're using here. And I'll show you what I mean here. So I'm tracing out this one center shape. And then I'm going to come in, I'm going to redraw the perimeter about a 1/4 inch in. All the way around. This is what I'll do on all of my pieces. I'm just going to show you on the one here. Save a little time for you. I just like to do this. It just, allows the paper to kind of pop up off the wood a little bit. And then I will cut that new pattern piece out. Okay? And you don't have to do this. You can totally, so you don't have to sand your wood, you can totally just cover it edge to edge. And this is what it'll look like when I go ahead and glue it on. Okay? So, got all those cut out. Now I'm going to come around and paint all my pieces here. So you can see I only kind of have to paint around the perimeter and the sides. Do a little bit of each of the colors. I love this terracotta shape or shade of Dixie Belle chalk paint. It's just so pretty. Kind of that rusty, but not real dark, but kind of rusty burnt orange shade here. I do a couple of coats on all of them. Now I'm going to come in with that chocolate shade of the Dixie Belle chalk paint. I used to have a supplier here that I could buy that from, but now I just go on Etsy and buy up what I need. And then my favorite drop cloth because it's kind of a nice cream shade of paint. So here's my papers. I've got them all cut. I want you to see kind of how they look all short, and you can see that little bit of perimeter paint all the way around. Just like that. And for my sign, it's so long, I chose paper that I could tape on the back, and once we get the quote on there, you can't see the seam. So I chose papers that I could seam together really nicely. So that's how I did that one. And then I take everything to the sewing machine, sewing on all my papers and stuff. I just sew on it like it's regular fabric. I use a size 9 or 10 needle depending on manufacturer. My stitch length is on 4, my straight stitch length, because that's the highest it goes. My tensions sit on 4. And I just use whatever color threads in my machine. Sometimes I change it out, but I usually go between like a dark brown, a cream, and a white or a black thread. Just kind of some neutral shades here. You can see how that looks. I think it just gives it a nice, subtle kind of country texture. If you're not a sewer, don't worry about it. You don't have to do that. So you can see here what everything looks like. Just sets it off a little bit. And then I'll take the open end of my scissor blades and I'll kind of start scraping around the edges of everything, of course. And especially papers like this cardstock has a white core. It really kind of sets it off. It's really nice. Just kind of adds to a look to it. I'll do that on everything. I think I said that. Here's what it looks like with and without. So whatever your preference is, however you like it, you can decide how you want to do your papers. It looks great either way. So I'm going to just start gluing all my papers on except for the long sign. So I'm just gluing front and back all my papers onto all my pumpkins. Okay. I'll let you see all that process. And you don't have to cover the backs if you don't want to. You can just put paper on the front. You don't have to cover anything with paper. You can just paint everything up and leave them plain. That would look cute too. Sand it, distress it would look wonderful. Perfect. And not, middle pumpkin, of course, I glued down that center piece on there. And that's the only one, like I said, I'm going to use the center piece on, because that's going to kind of be my middle pumpkin. I just said that, didn't I? Now I'm going to start decorating up my pumpkins a little bit using that wire from Joann's and some of the paper cover wire, just kind of wrapping it around the stems. I love to add wire coming up from the stems. I've got some of this macrame, adding some beads to it and kind of knotting off the end and smushing it so it looks really cute. Kind of tied that macrame string into that bow there. Did I say that already? Sometimes I'm thinking like 10 steps ahead and I forget if I said it already. Now I'm going to bring in some of this Excelsior. I think I ended up getting this at Joann's or Michael's, something like that. And I've got some burlap leaves here. You can see I've sewn around the edges just like I did on the other project. And I'm going to get some of this Excelsior on first. All 3 pumpkins are going to kind of have about the same thing on them, but just look slightly different. And then I'll go ahead and glue the burlap leaf, one on this one. Perfect. And I'm going to add some of that mesh tubing from Dollar Tree. I love that stuff. I buy like 5 or 6 bags at a time. Add a little bit of this burlap trim also from Dollar Tree right over that mesh tubing. I tie that mesh tubing in a bow so it's easier to glue. And I've got about several pieces of thin twine here I've tied together in a bow, and I'll add that little macrame bow on top. And then this is another quote I have printed onto some fabric. I'll have the link in the description box for these particular cute fall quotes. Again, I just run them through my printer. I put tape on the edge of my fabric piece. I size it the size of paper. I use Duck Fabric by Waverly brand to because it's thick like canvas, to run through my printer, and with the taped edge, the rollers of the printer just kind of grabs it and prints on it. Not every printer is going to do it, and if that doesn't work, you can print it onto cardstock. And so then, of course, I glued that onto that log slice, wood slice, glued the wood slice on, and then those are little pumpkin putka pods, and I glued that to the center of the bow. Again, I'm coming here on the second pumpkin, the same thing with the Excelsior. I'll do 2 leaves on this one, adding in some little berries here. I think those are from Hobby Lobby. Any little picks and stuff you have, again with some twine, burlap twine from Dollar Tree. You can put anything in there. Ripped fabric here I tied into a bow. That's super cute. Decided to put the twine on top of that, or the burlap bow on top of that, then add some twine on top of that. add on top of that. Some cute little acorn picks here. And a little pumpkin putka pod right in the center. So they look uniform, but a little bit different. On to our third pumpkin, again with the Excelsior and burlap bows. Again, I'll do 2 on this one. So the center pumpkin only has 1 leaf to set it off, and the 2 on the outer edge have 2. Adding in some cute little pip berries on this one. These are the little picks there. You get them from Dollar Tree. They're cupcake picks. Here's the acorns. And then here's the pumpkins, and they also have sunflowers. And I just sanded that up just so it looks really, distress. And then I've got some crochet ribbon here. Just tied that in the bow, and I'm gluing that to the center. Again, another piece of that little burlap trim right on top. And another little twine bow on top of that. And then one of those little picks. I'm going to tuck that in there, and I think I tucked in a little wood leaf as well, and the little pumpkin putka pod right on top. Beautiful, and here's what they all three look like. So the pumpkin kisses kind of goes with our quote at the bottom. You'll see that in just a minute. So here's a quote. I did it on my Cricut machine. I will have the font in my description box. You could just use whatever font you want and just print it out onto your paper before you glue your paper on. I used to have to do that before I had an electronic cutting machine. That works perfectly fine as well. You may have to kind of split your quote up if you have a long sign, but you can print half of your quote on one piece of paper, half of your quote on the other piece of paper, and then cut that paper to fit your sign. So here it says, my thought process was, meet me at the pumpkin patch for some pumpkin kisses. So that's why I chose that little cute pumpkin kisses on that little wood slice. We're going to get this glued on here. And then I'm going to use some Gorilla Glue and Beacon Fabrica glue here, and I'm going to glue my little pumpkins right on top of our long sign. So now you know why I chose a really long sign. I've already kind of pre-marked where my pumpkins are going to lay, so I can just kind of add a combination of these glues, using the Fabrica glue to kind of hold it in while the other glue sets up. My middle pumpkin, the log made it top heavy, so I had to paint a little tumbling tower block to put it on the back side, because that log kept making my pumpkin tip over. So kind of think about that when you go to glue stuff on. So got that ready. We're just going to set everything right into place here. I'm kind of making them all a little bit catty-wonky on our sign. This turned out so cute. I love it. Once I get these into place, that makes this project complete. Let's move on to project number 6. For this project, I'm going to use this orange plaid fabric from Dollar Tree. I love. These are some of the other kind of orange colored ones I found. They came in fall time, of course, really super cute. But, you could pick whatever color you want. You want a pink pumpkin, do a pink one. I almost used this stripe just because, I know you wanted to know that. But in the end, I'm a plaid girl, so I went with the plaid. But just one roll of fabric will do for our project. And then 3 pieces here of this batting. You buy it by the yard at Walmart. I'm going to do 3 separate segments for our pumpkin and some stuffing. So on the batting, you're going to cut 3 of these pieces they are about 6.5 inches wide. And then the length is about, let's see here, 12, 13, 14, 15-ish inches in length. And then you're going to need some stuffing. With your stuffing, what you want, just really loosely packed. You want about, a 2-inch kind of diameter around of the stuffing, and just kind of roll it into a little tube. And what we're going to do using Beacon Fabrica glue, we're just going to roll our batting around our stuffing to make each segment of the pumpkin. Okay, so this is how we're doing it. Again, Beacon Fabrica, or you can use the hot glue gun. No laughing at my hot glue gun. I know it looks horrible. I hate showing it on camera. Either one will work fine. But just kind of roll your batting right around over the stuffing to make a nice little tube. Kind of stuff your stuffing in the inside if it came out a little bit. Just like this is what we've got. And then we're going to take our fabric. You're going to cut that into 3 pieces. And I cut that about, probably 8 inches in width and about 18 inches long. And we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to roll our fabric right over our little batting, stuffing roll here. I'm trying to make this one kind of a non-sewing thing for you all. Just roll it just like that. And you're going to do the same thing on all 3. I'll just show you one here, but you can do the same process on all 3. Just make sure you closed it over enough that you can, cover up that batting. You don't want that seen. Make it look nice. And in the ends, we're just going to kind of wrap it like, you know, a little present. Okay, get this in. I've got a little working time with my Fabri-Tac glue. That's why I can kind of pull this off and adjust it. Got about a minute before it fully cures. Okay, and then just add a little glue there. And we're just going to fold it in one side and then the other side, adding a little glue. See, just like a present. And then fold it over, right over the top. Kind of try to match up your seams there a little bit, just like that. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Because you can see that one side I started folding from the left to the right, and this side I'm folding from the right to the left, just so when the seam comes down, it's right, that point of that seam is right on the seam of the main fabric. Do you know what I'm saying? That point will match up with the seam. Perfect. That's it. That's what you're going to do on all three. So magic of TV and camera, 1, 2, and 3. That's our pumpkin. Next thing we're going to do is we're just going to glue. I'm just using one line of glue, and we're just going to, at the side of our little tube here, we're going to just glue all these 3 tubes together. It's a little bit of a floppy pumpkin, but it's certainly really cute. Got 2 on. We'll go to the last one here. Just like this. And then we're going to pick a stem. Now here's some options. Again, a little piece from the handle of a plunger is already cut and it's distressed because I did it last year. Or I've got a little piece here off of a spindle. You could use even a stick from the backyard would work, whatever, you know, colors you want. I know this is great. I went out in the yard and really found ones that had a lot of texture to them. It's fun. Here's what each would look like, but you all know I'm probably going to go with the spindle, and I did. Nice and easy. I'm just going to go ahead and glue the spindle right to the top with the Beacon Fabri-Tac glue. It holds perfectly, perfectly wonderful right in that center of our segment pumpkin. Okay, so now what we're going to do is I cut a piece off. It's probably about 5 inches long. I'm using Waverly wax mixed with water. I'm at the end of my bottle, so my bottle already has a bunch of water in it, and just do it like a stain. We're going to make a sign. This is so super easy, and the wood I cut it from was just one of those slat boards from Dollar Tree. And then I'm taking my drill and a tiny little drill bit, and I'm just drilling a hole at the top, probably about 1 inch in from each side, 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches. And we're going to set that aside for now. For this project, I'm going to use this mesh tubing from Dollar Tree, some raffia also from Dollar Tree, some of this paper-covered wire from Hobby Lobby, some of these little pumpkins from Dollar Tree. Going to bring in, again, some of this burlap trim also from Dollar Tree. And some of these cute little bead berries. Again, Dollar Tree, some moss. This is from Walmart. You all know I like that Walmart moss. And these are just some things, this wood leaf, the flowers from Dollar Tree, the wood leaf's off a pick from Joann's or something, some of this burlap leaf, again, Dollar Tree. Tried to use a lot of Dollar Tree supplies for you. And then some of this I just picked up, little bead berry, pitberry trim, picked up at Goodwill, and a little acorn leaf and another little pine cone, just all off of picks. I save everything off picks. This is from a pick, little pumpkins, that kind of thing. And then I'm going to again bring back in some of this wire from Hobby Lobby to curl around our stem. Okay, I've got it ready here, curled like I want it. So I'm going to get it right down to the bottom, curled around the bottom of that little wood stem there. And I like my wire here to kind of be curly and loose along it and kind of come and hang off the top. That's how I like it on my pumpkins. And then I'm going to bring in some of this moss, and I'm going to have it just kind of hang down a little bit. Again, this is why I like the one from Walmart, the moss, because it's in longer pieces. And so you can kind of, you know, work with it and let it hang down on your projects a little bit more. And I'll do it on the front. I'm going to bring it up on the sides a little bit as well, up onto the stem a little bit here. And also onto the back, because I just want to cover that area around where we wrap that wire around the pumpkin stem. I want it to look nice and finished off. Okay. But your choice. Again, a little bit on the stem just so it all looks cohesive. Looks wonderful. It's going to give us our kind of rustic look here. And then I'm going to go ahead and add wood leaf. I'm going to hang my little beaded pip berries here. I know I'm hanging them kind of weird and it looks funny right now because I've got one down and one out to the right side, but it will all look good as once we get the other stuff on it. Now that raffia, I took, you know, gosh, I don't know what, 8, 9 pieces here. I don't know. And I just tied it into a big bow and I left the tails really long because our pumpkin, you know what, it's 18 inches long, not including the stems. So I'm going to take some of that paper cover wire I get at Hobby Lobby now, and I'm going to add that around the stem as well, just to give it a little bit more movement because that other wire is really stiff. I'm going to add in just a little piece of burlap leaf here, and I'm going to add some of that mesh tubing in here as well. I put it in a little knot so it gives me a little more gluing surface to glue onto my project. And I'm going to go ahead and glue on this burlap bow, just still adjusting that mesh tubing a little bit. And some twine here, really thin twine, and I take about 5 or 6 pieces and I tie them all together in a bow. And in one of these orange flowers from Dollar Tree, I love this color orange. And then we're going to, I went back to get more and there wasn't any, and I'd only bought one bundle at first, darn it. Going to add in the acorn and the leaf and the little pine cone in here. Really whatever you've got, any little bits and baubles from all your picks. And it's just kind of a right to left side, you know, just kind of make it look a little bit even. Going to add in a couple of those little mini pumpkins right to the side. I love the burlap ones. Right to the side of our flower here. And add in this little kind of pumpkin-y thing that came off of a pick. And then I'm going to add in some of those beads from Dollar Tree. They have like 2 colors in, like a really bright orange and then this kind of rustic orange. So this is the one I'm using, the rustic orange. 2 on the bottom, kind of 1 on the top to bring in a little bit more of that darker orange like in the fabric and the flower. And of course that little mini pumpkin, a little bit darker oranges in there. And then we're going to come back to our sign. I've got some wire here, just really long, big long piece, and I'm just wrapping it around the handle of a really tiny diameter paintbrush here. I'm going to see how long I need the wire to be, and I'm going to just leaving a long end, just a couple of inches so I can put it through the hole. And then once I get that through there, I'll wrap it around the paintbrush and then just smush it up against the sign. Nice and easy, just like that. Okay? This is the tag I'm putting on it. Printed it again on fabric and sewed around it. You could, of course, print it onto cardstock and add it to this as well. Either one would look wonderful. I'm going to put that straight end right through that hole there, kind of cut off some excess, wrap it around that paintbrush to curl it up, and then smush it right up against the drilled hole there. There, and now we've got a sign, a little wood piece just like that first project. It looks perfectly beautiful. And now we're going to add this sign as our finishing touch to our pumpkin. I'm going to add a little bit of glue, and I'm going to just kind of nestle it right in here between the flowers and the pumpkins. And that makes this project complete. Let's move on to project number 7. For this project, I'm going to be using this cotton batting that I got from Walmart. I've already created a 22-inch diameter circle pattern, and that's what I use to cut this fabric out with. Okay, we're going to be using some fishing line here. This is a 30-pound test fishing line. Doesn't matter which one you have. This is just some my husband gave me. I've got a really long piece here and a needle that's got a large eye opening to it. So like doll needles or whatever you can get from Walmart. I'm going to go ahead and tie 1 knot at the end here. Actually, I tie like 3 or 4 knots because fishing line is really slick. And I'm going to show you this process again each time because I know we get new people watching. But, you know, those of you that know how to do this part, you, of course, may fast forward. So I'm going to stick my needle through the batting, and you can see it's part way out. I'm not going to pull the needle all the way out. Okay, we're going to do like a running stitch, so it creates like pleats, you know, like pleats at the top of a curtain. So my needle's part way out. I've got it, you know, on the back side. I'm going to bring it back through and poke it to the front side. Okay, I got about a 1/2 inch apart on my stitches and about a 1/2 inch from the top. It doesn't matter if your stitches get bigger or smaller, really it doesn't, but try to stay the same distance from the top at least. Okay, and then I'm going to come from the front and I'm going to poke my needle again to the back side, just like this, and then again to the front side. Okay, you can see I've got a couple pleats. We're going to go to the back side and to the front side, pleating the fabric as we go. Okay, back side, front side, back side, front side. And when you get enough on your needle, you can go ahead and pull that through all the way till you reach the end of your knot. Okay, once I get just kind of right next to it there, as you can see here, I'm going to go ahead and pull my fishing line through and then pull the needle off of the fishing line. We don't need that anymore. And then I'm going to grab where this knot is right here, and I'm going to pull that out nice and long. So I've got 2 long pieces here. Okay, and we're going to kind of open our pumpkin here and we're going to stuff it. For those of you that are new, I use fishing line because I like to stuff my pumpkins really tight, and fishing line is the only thing I have found that doesn't break on me. I've used, crochet, thread, yarn, that kind of thing. I like the fishing line. But, you can try what you like. If I wouldn't go with any regular thread, I would definitely go with like a crochet thread, a yarn, something like that. So I'm just going to kind of clip these 2 pieces, these 2 fishing line pieces off and set it aside so they don't, come out of our gather here. We're going to work on our stem. Now I'm going to use a piece of spindle here and cut a big piece off. I'm just showing you this is one version. This is the piece of spindle I'm going to use. You could, here's other versions you could use. You could even use this. It's the handle from the toilet bowl plunger at Walmart. I like to use it and use the end with the little screws on it because it just gives it some personality. But I'm going to go with the little spindle piece today. You could use a nice big stick from your backyard, whatever you choose. And the spindle I've got here is just about 10 inches in length. All right, we're going to take that clip off. We're going to pull our 2, pieces of fishing line here and just figure out how big I need my opening here. So I'll be kind of testing that. And then once I get it to where I need it, I'll go ahead and get my spindle ready and get some glue on it. I'm going to use Beacon Fabrica glue. You can certainly use hot glue, not an issue at all. So I'm kind of holding my fishing line threads over here and adding the glue onto this side. So I'm going to pull this a little bit tighter here so I can get my handle in. Got the glue on it, so that's going to kind of hold for me as I pull even tighter and kind of close the gap as much as possible. It's okay if there's a little bit of gap there. We're going to cover that up if you don't get it completely tight around it, if there's even an inch gap around it. But it does kind of, the closer you get to it, it does kind of help hold that spindle up as well. And I'm going to tie like 5, 6, 7 knots because again, that fishing line is really slick and I don't want it to come out. Then once I get that to there, I'll cut off, I'll leave some kind of long tails just to give it some room here, and then I will kind of tuck the excess back inside of the pumpkin there. I'm going to use these leaves from Dollar Tree, these burlap leaves, a couple of them. I'm going to go ahead and sew around them. Certainly, if you're not a sewer, you don't have to do this part. I just like to do this. It's fun for me to sew. I love it. This is what it looks like. See, it's just real subtle, but it's there. I know I did it, right? I'll do that on both leaves. And then once I've got that done, you can do this. You can go around and kind of pull on the outer edges and kind of distress your leaves up a little bit. So if you're not a sewer and you want to add texture, this is a great way to do it. I'm going to use this grapevine wire I get from Hobby Lobby. You can see it's only like $3.99. I'm going to cut a nice, super big, long chunk off. You can see how long it is. And I'm just going to get it where I need it into position to wrap around nice and tight the bottom of our stem and really hang nice and loose and loopy off of the top end just to give it some personality. I'll use the Beacon Fabrica glue and get that glued in there and kind of tuck it down into the inside of that pumpkin there. You can see what it looks like, all nice and loopy. I'm going to go ahead and start gluing the leaves on. I'm going to glue one kind of on either side of our stem here. See, that's already helping kind of cover up our opening around that stem a little bit and finishes it off, but we'll cover it even a little bit more. Perfect. I'm going to bring in some of this moss. I've got some of this raffia that you can get from Dollar Tree. I've just tied like 6 or 7 strands together into a nice bow. I'm going to glue that right up next to that spindle there. I'm going to use some of this mesh tubing from Dollar Tree. Love this. I've got 2 pieces here and I've just kind of tied a knot in the middle, and that knot gives me some room, to add some glue to. And here comes the second piece here, just to give us some more texture hanging out, as if we didn't have enough, but y'all know I like my texture. Kind of move things around here. Perfect. And now I've got just some ribbon I picked up at Hobby Lobby. I love this ribbon. Use whatever color you want. I tied it into a nice, great big bow. We're going to go ahead and glue that down over that mesh tubing and that raffia. And then I'm going to take a couple more pieces of raffia and a little bow and add it right up on top of that, just to bring that raffia a little bit more forward. I've got some flowers here from Dollar Tree. I'm going to use 2 from that. And then I've got some crochet trim here from Dollar Tree as well. And I've got some regular twine. I used 2 together to tie into a bow, and some really thin twine. I used about 4 or 5 together to tie into a bow. So what I'm going to do is get one of these flowers on here, and then I'm going to take all these bows, the twine bows and the crochet bow trim, lump them together, and I'm going to kind of sandwich it in between the 2 flowers. So I've already got glue on this flower waiting, and I'm just sandwich it right in between, just like that. Once that's ready, we're going to go into making a little tag for our pumpkin. For my tag, I'll again be using these phrases I printed on fabrics I explained in other previous projects done today. And I'm just going to go ahead and cut this out so that I can take it to my sewing machine. Then I'm just running this again through my sewing machine. I'll run it, 2 or 3 times around just to get a fun little stitch around it. I'm not trying to be neat about it. It's actually a real crooked strip of sewing, but I'm just leaving it that way. If you're not a sewer, of course, skip that, and you can pull on the threads around it, and kind of distress your fabric up if you're using fabric, that kind of thing. And then I've got a great big clothespin here. I'm going to glue it onto my fabric, and then I'm going to glue it right up underneath our little flower ensemble. And then I'll just tack it down kind of on the end there. And that makes this project complete. Let's move on to project number 8. For this project, this is my medium pumpkin template I just cut out of some cardboard. It's about an 18-inch diameter circle. I'm going to be using this batting I got from Walmart. I love it because I love the texture on it, and you get a lot of batting for a low price. And I've got my circle already cut. I'm going to use this large eye opening doll needle. You get about 5 to a pack at Walmart, and some fishing line. This is just a 30-pound test fishing line. That part doesn't matter, just some fishing line. And then we're going to go ahead and do the same kind of pleated gathering stitch technique as we've been doing on our other pumpkins. I've explained it a couple of times, so hopefully you've got it down by now, but just this back and forth motion and, working that all the way around the pumpkin. So just keep doing that till you come all the way around and come right back close to where you started, the knot of where you started. Go ahead and pull your needle off that line and then grab that knot and pull it out nice and long so you have 2 long pieces of fishing line here. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and stuff it with as much stuffing as you want. I'm going to use this from Dollar Tree. It's the Dollar Tree plunger. I've already got one cut off from a project last year, about 5 inches tall, and I had painted it a little bit. And so I'm going to pull the 2 pieces of my fishing line together to kind of form a hole here and see how big it needs to be to fit our little plunger stem here. Once I know kind of how big it is, I'll check it here once again. I'll start knotting this, knotting this fishing line. Okay, Then what I'll do is take that piece of plunger I had cut off, and we're just going to use some Beacon Fabric glue here, and we're going to get it into our opening, and now we have our stem and our pumpkins. Now I'm going to take some muslin here. I got this from Walmart, about a 2-inch width here, make a little slit with my scissors, and then rip off that fabric just to give us a nice texture. And we're going to do the same process we did with the pumpkin, pleating it back and forth on a needle. We're just going to use some regular thread here. As you can see, we're going to make an easy kind of shabby flower. So you start at one end. Again, I'm probably 1/2 inch in the top, about 1/2 inch part between the stitches, and we're just pleating our fabric back and forth really fast on our needle. You get 10 or 11 or so on there, pull it all the way through, and continue on till you come to the end of your strip. My strip's probably about 30 inches long, I'm going to say. Just keep doing this. Nice and easy. We'll be good at those pleats, won't we? Once you come close to the end, I'm going to go ahead and leave my needle on this because I'll use it again later. You don't have to. We're going to gather everything up nice and tight. For this part, you can use the Fabri-Tac glue or, of course, the hot glue gun. And we're just going to add your glue right onto our stitch area, okay? And we're just going to simply roll our flower along that stitched edge, making sure the edges right here, those raw edges, stay nice and flat here. So just rolling it along just like that. You see how kind of it's nice and flat. That's our bottom piece where we're going to glue. And just keep adding glue along that stitched area and keep rolling your flower. Now, if you didn't want to finish using your thread here, you could just, once you glue everything together, you can just knot it off, cut off your excess thread. But I'm going to take advantage of the thread and the needle I've still got here. And I'm just going to do a couple of, once I get everything glued, a couple of little stitches here to secure it. Again, you can skip this part, especially if you're using hot glue. But Fabri-Tac glue takes a little time to set up, so I'm just doing a couple of little stitches here. And then once I get, that, I will make a little loop and run my needle through that loop a couple of times. 1 and 2, and then I'll go ahead and pull it all the way through to make a knot and cut off the excess. Just like that, and we have a cute little shabby flower. Now I'm going to use this. I printed off into some fabric and I sewed around the edges, going to make us a little tag. I will have a link in the description box for you, similar to these, but I will make it without the circle around it. You can print them on cardstock or onto your fabric. Now, setting that aside, I have some raffia here that I curled with a curling iron, just like we did previously in our other project. So I'm just taking some of that raffia and I'm just kind of tying in a little knot here at one end, keeping it all together so it's easier to glue, and making a nice little pile here just like this. And then I'll go ahead and use the Beacon Fabri-Tac glue and kind of glue it right up against that stem. I like how this raffia turned out curly. It just gives it some fun, right? Now I've got another piece of the ripped fabric here like we did on the flower. It's about 1 inch wide. And I'm just going to make a little bow out of it. Nice and easy. I did 2 pieces about 1 inch wide, ripped them. And then I'm going to go ahead and glue that right in front of the raffia. I want to hide that little knot and stuff there. And then I've got this edge I want to, cover up. So I've got some of this wire rope from Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to wrap it around that fabric there because I want that back to look finished off, and kind of curl it around my stem and hanging off my stem nice and kind of curly and give it some texture. Just like that. Easy, easy. I love how this turned out. Nice, easy pumpkin. And that finishes all it off. I've got some crochet trim here from Dollar Tree. I'm tied it in a knot, a little bow knot, and then glue that knot to our center there. And then we're going to glue, excuse me, our flower down right over the top of that. And then we're going to take our little, I've got a little mini clothespin here, and we're going to glue it to our little quote. So you can glue it to fabric quote or your cardstock quote, either one. And then kind of clip it to the bow, and then cute. And then I'm going to take some really thin twine. I've got like 3 pieces tied it into a bow, and I'm going to shove it right under the right end of that flower and near our little tag. And that makes this project complete. Let's move on to project number 9. Now for this project, we're going to be working with this fabric in this large circle. This fabric I got in a roll at Walmart. It's called Sherpa Fleece, 1.5 yards, around $10. And then I taped a bunch of cardstock together and then, drew this Jihujic 26-inch circle. And of course, cut that out. First thing I'm going to do is fold this big circle in half. And as you can see, I'm on the floor. That's how big this circle is. I'm going to fold that Sherpa fabric in half and then place the fold of the circle onto the fold of the fabric. I'll go ahead and use a couple of pins and pin that down. You should be able to get at least 2 pumpkins out of this big circle. This is the biggest pumpkin I've ever made, and I love it. I got the idea off of some shopping site, Kohl's or Target or something, and they were selling pumpkin-shaped pillows, and I'm like, that's Jihujic. I've got to make one. So here's my Jihujic pumpkin-shaped pillow. And now what I did is I folded this in half and folded in half again once it was cut out, because right at that point I need to find the center of my circle. I'm going to be using this crochet thread. You can find it at Walmart. And however thick you want it. Mine's pretty thick. I think about it like a size 3, maybe a size 5. And I'm going to cut 7 strands of this because we want to use this to make segments on our pumpkin. And they are about probably 36-inch long strands. Probably overkill. I know it is. It's way too long, but I'd rather have too long than not long enough, of course. So again, cutting 7 of these because I like odd numbers in my pumpkin segments. I'm going to use this large doll needle. You can get these in a pack at Walmart. And I'm using one, you want to look for a needle with a big eye opening because we're trying to get that thread through that large eye opening. So I'm finding my center and poking that needle through, and I'm going to take a Sharpie and make just a little black dot right where that needle comes out. And I like the big eye needles, big holes in the needle eye. How am I saying that? Anyway, because I like to, as you can see here, take 2 or 3 strands of the string at one time. And we're just going to poke that through the center where we mark that, and then we're going to pull our needle out. Leave enough hanging out of your pumpkin. Don't pull it all the way through. And then I've put 2 on this one. Now when you put it through, you don't want to put it in the same hole. Put it right next to it, right close, but not the same hole. Because then when we go to knot all of these together, you don't want that to come out of this large hole that you've been poking through trying to get all your string through. Once we've got all our strings through, pull them together all even at one end and then just tie a big knot in it. I did 2 knots here. Just like that. We don't want this to come out, and then pull that all the way through. Now remember, we're doing this on the inside of the fabric, okay? So now I'm going to take some fishing line and our needle, of course. Once again, we're going to tie a little knot in the end, and we're going to do our little pleated gathering stitch all the way around the perimeter of our pumpkin. So you come right close to your last stitch, close to that knot, and then you're going to pull that all the way through and go ahead and pull your needle off that fishing line. And then you're going to grab that long strand, and you're going to grab the other strand, your knot, and you're going to pull that knot out so it's nice as long as your other strand you had hanging just a second ago. So you've got 2 long strands here, and open up your pumpkin. Now we're going to start stuffing it, okay? I'm just using pillow stuffing as you saw there, and I'm going to stuff this nice and tight. So I'm just kind of stuffing and pulling on the 2 strands of my fishing line together to kind of gather that opening closed, and then stuffing a little more, kind of gauging how much I want in there. Once I'm satisfied where I like it, I get it all the way pulled through, and then I'm going to tie several, probably 7, 8, 9, 10 knots here because, again, remember, it's really slick fishing line because I don't want it to come out. Remember to leave a hole big enough because you want to put a stem in here. So that's another thing to think about. That's why my hole's kind of big. I cut off the excess, and I'm going to just stuff those long pieces kind of right inside there. Now we're going to work with our strings. We're going to make our segments, and I'm just kind of placing where, they might go. And I usually take 1 string across from the others you see here, and I'll flip it over. And then I will take both of those, I'll pull them up together, pull it really taut, and then tie it in a knot. Now when you're tying these strings together, try to tie them in a fashion that you kind of leave the center open between the knots of all the strings because you got to be able to get your stem in there in the midst of all those strings. So I've got my other one pulled up here, one across from the other. I usually will kind of wrap it underneath the knot I just made, kind of tie a knot around it. Remember, pulling it taut to make your sections. And then here I come with another 2, pulling it up and over. Move my strings out of the way, and I'll kind of tie a little knot. See, now I'm kind of tying in the other end. I'm trying to leave that center open a little bit. See, I didn't tie where the other ones were. Nice knot. And then I've got 1 string left. I'm just going to pull that up and over. And you can move these strings once you get them tied. You can move them and fix your segments. And I'm going to bring it up and grab a string from one of the other ones. And I'm going to tie that together. A little knot here. And then I'm going to take my excess strings. So I've got a couple of large big holes there. I can shove my stem in, cut those strings off, and then tuck them inside. I don't cut them close to the string because I don't want them to come out. I leave nice long segments. So I've got a scrap piece here about 8 by about 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 inches scrap piece of our fleece, and I'm just going to roll it up for our stem. This is what I'm going to use for our stem. Just like that, nice and easy. Now I've got a piece of heavy duty wire here. I've kind of bent it in half a little bit. I'm going to roll that up inside our stem about 1 inch from the top. And then I'm going to add some Beacon Fabrica glue, and I'm going to glue our fabric together. I put that wire in there so that I can kind of bend and shape my stem. Okay, but about 1 inch down from the top, because when we go to stuff this in, that wire is going to push up and we're going to have to push it back down anyway. I don't worry about gluing the wire in or anything like that. I'm going to cut off the excess pieces here. And these are some of the things I'm going to use, some pumpkins and these little fluffy balls from Dollar Tree, woodwards from Dollar Tree, some wood leaves from Dollar Tree, and some crochet trim also again from Dollar Tree, some pom-pom trim I got at Walmart. And these I got, I'm going to use wood leaf from Joann's, a pick, and some of this white rope from Hobby Lobby, $1.99, 6 yards of it, and then you get it half off from Hobby Lobby, got it for $1. And then some of this trim I got at Christmas time from Walmart. And then some of this yarn, also I picked this up at Walmart. It's called Serenity Chunky Yarn. I kind of want this pumpkin tone on tone, as you can guess. And I'm going to also use some wood beads here. I kind of want to do creams and whites. And then these are just some kind of bead pitberry thing I got at Goodwill, a big old stem of it, you know, just from my supply. So I've got this. It's ready to go. I'm bending it. I'm going to add some glue all the way around the end part of it, you know, last couple inches or so. Grab a bunch of Fabri-Tac glue. Of course, you can use hot glue for this part. Once I get enough glue, I'm going to shove it in there. I'm going to pull that string apart, shove it right in the center. Perfect. You'll see that wire try and pop up here in a minute, probably. And then there it is. I'll shove it back down, and then I'm going to bring up my gathered part of the pumpkin, and I've got enough glue on there, and kind of shove it up against the stem so there's not a gap, there's not an opening. This is what it looks like. Now this right here, all of this really is, you know, however you want to decorate it, but I wanted to take some of this yarn just to add a little bit texture to the stem. So I'm just wrapping it around the stem of the pumpkin, you know, probably about a 3-inch width, you know, piece. You don't have to do this. I just thought it would be fun, give it a little personality. I like how the yarn's kind of twisted and chunky. It's soft like the fleece. And then I'll kind of double wrap a little bit, come down to the bottom and make a bow with nice big loops. Let that hang for a minute. Okay, and I'm going to ravel the ends a little bit, give it a little more texture. All right, now I'm going to come in here, add some more decoration, that pom-pom trim. I'm going to add some of this in. Right underneath that bow. I'll go ahead and like tie it in a knot. I'm going to take this crochet trim and tie it in the knot in the center just to give us some gluing surface, kind of laying things here, see how I want it. Cut off, you know, the length I want. I'm going to let these hang nice and long on the end. And then I'm going to come in with this kind of cream wired trim and, you know, see how big I want my bow and my bow loops here, just tying a simple bow here. Perfect. Again, I'm going to make these nice and long to let them hang. And then we're going to start gluing. Going to glue our little, right where we made the knot in the pom-pom, so it gives us gluing surface right underneath that first yarn bow. Going to glue in our crochet trim right at the knot we made. Trim these just a little bit more. I love how this turned out. I love kind of the tone on tone of the creams and whites together. Looks just so elegant to me. natural fun. And then the pop of color came from the beaded pip berries. We're going to put our bow on right again underneath that yarn, because then I'm going to bring that yarn kind of right over the top of that bow, and I'll glue that into place. Perfect. Just think it looks elegant. We're going to tie our little string in here. You could use that macrame string from Dollar Tree if you want. And then we're going to start, the leaf's just laying there. I haven't glued it in yet. I'm going to start gluing in the little fabric pumpkins from that Dollar Tree pick. Little velour pumpkins. I just love the white ones. Going to glue them at a little bit of an angle, and then we'll go ahead and glue that wood leaf in. Again, this just came from a pick from Joann's. You could use anything there, any wood leaf. If you even want a wood leaf, I don't know. It's your personality and style. And then I'm going to take this Give Thanks, from that pack of words from Dollar Tree, and I'm going to glue it onto that Dollar Tree leaf, covering that hole. Perfect. And then I've got just a little mini clothespin here, and I'm going to glue that right onto that little ensemble. I'm going to go ahead and add some of those wood beads. Add a couple different, I add that little sectioned wood bead too. I think I picked those up at Hobby Lobby. I like those kind of little sectioned looking wood beads. 3 beads per strand, and I'll make one shorter than the other. Tie a knot, cut off the excess so the beads don't fall out, and kind of smush the end a little bit, just like that. Perfect. This one will be a little bit longer hanging. Cut off the excess after you tie the knot. Smush the end. I just like to say smush. And then we're going to add a little glue to our clothespin, and we're going to add that right in between those pumpkins. I'll take one of those little fluffy ball things from Dollar Tree, glue that in a little bit behind. So it's just poking out a little bit, just poking out right behind that leaf. And then I'm going to add in our little pop of color. We're going to go ahead and glue that in right at the base of that stem. Love that pop of color. And that makes this project complete. Let's move on to our last pumpkin project, number 10. For this project, I've got 2x4 wood here, and I cut it into 4 equal pieces, and these measure just about 7 inches tall. Now, I do have like 2 more sets, and I did a 6-inch and a 5-inch tall, but we're just going to work with the larger set for now. I'm just taking some wood glue here because I'm going to glue these together on the, widest side, just like that. I thought these would make cute pumpkins, of course, and give us a lot of fun texture to work with. This together, making sure, our top and bottom are all nice and even. And then once I get that into place with the wood glue, I'll go ahead and clamp it for a little bit before I start working on it. I think I let it set for like half an hour or so. And then once those clamps come off camera, I go ahead, I have a little piece of scrap wood here from this chunky slat board from Dollar Tree. I go ahead off camera and glue that on for the stem. I think it's about 3 inches tall. I'm going to use Dixie Belle chalk paint in the color drop cloth for this project, as well as some Waverly wax mixed with water, antique wax, I guess, for the stem. Okay, I don't have to paint it all the way around, because you all know I'm going to use scrapbook paper. So I'm just making sure I get around, each area, make sure I get in those deep grooves, because that part is going to show. I am going to cover each of the sides separately, all right? You don't have to use scrapbook paper. You could, of course, just paint the whole thing. And then once I've got the drop cloth color on the bottom, of course, I taped it off a little bit and just kind of staining that stem. Perfect. Once that's all dry, I will take it outside off camera and distress it as you see here. Love how that distress look is. I've got everything cut and everything almost ready to go except for a few pieces. So what I've done is use this scrapbook paper, which is my favorite for fall from Hobby Lobby, and I've cut and this paper from my supply, and I've cut this into strips. Okay, it's going to be stripped front and back, as well as the sides and the bottom, and then the top piece. Now for the top piece, what I did is I made myself a little pattern here. So I traced how big I wanted it from the bottom, and then cut that out, and then measured from the width of the front and the sides of the pumpkin stem, and then of course took my ruler and connected all those lines so it would give me a center little box, and then I cut that little box out, and so that will fit nicely over that stem. Okay, so I've got this done on my one piece of paper here. I'm going to go ahead and cut that center box out. Tiny little scissors get in there to cut this out. Little scissors from Dollar Tree come in handy, I tell you. Perfect. And then that will slide right over the top. And I don't care that there's a little opening here because we'll cover all that up. So as you probably saw on that, there was sewing on it. So those of you who might be new to my channel, I love to take all my papers and I take them to my sewing machine and I sew around the edges of each and every one. You don't have to do that if sewing's not your thing, because I tell you, once you start sewing on your papers, if you try to not sew on your papers somewhere down the line, it does not look right. I'm just telling you right now. So beware if you start sewing on your papers. So I just have a few here left that I haven't done just to show you what I'm doing, of course. And then once that's done, I'm taking those Dollar Tree scissors, open end of the scissor blades, and I'm scraping along the edges of all my paper to give it that rustic look. I love to do that. This again is optional, of course, and you can see what it looks like here. Just kind of adds a little dimension to our paper. And then we're going to start gluing. Again, I'm using Beacon Fabri-Tac glue here, and I'm going to start gluing all my separate pieces. Now, if you didn't want the front to have these separate little slips of paper here, you could just cover it with one big piece. But my intention here is I want to see that break in between the wood, if you know what I'm saying. I want to see those grooves in between the wood, but you could just use one sheet of paper here and just kind of cover all that up. Trying to glue everything in one swoop here. Trying to skip out adding the glue to everything, because you all know how to do that, right? Nothing boring than watching me glue paper, but I always like to show it so you can see I'm doing it, I guess. I don't know, it's just in my brain. They've got to see me gluing, so there it is. All right, then we're working on the sides of our pumpkin, of course. One big sheet, nice. Getting the other side. The bottom, I decided to go with just a piece of cardstock that matched because it was thicker and I wanted something a little more just kind of durable on the bottom. That paper from Hobby Lobby is kind of thin, right? And then we'll put our top piece on. And then we're going to add the paper to our stem. Look at those tiny little strips of paper. Of course I'm covering all that too. I just love it. You don't even have to add paper on the stem. If you're like, okay, I'm going to add paper on the pumpkin, you don't have to do it on the stem. That's just what I like. But I just like to show you how fun it is to use up that scrapbook paper. And I've got a lot of it because I scrapbook for years, although I still do. You guys just don't see a lot of it. Getting our last piece on here. And then these are some things I'll be using. This is from Hobby Lobby, these fall words. I'm going to use the one that's not painted. You, of course, could use these from Dollar Tree. And then I've got a lot of things down here. I don't use all of it, but I do use those sunflowers. I use these that were at my Dollar Tree last year, those kind of wooden flowers and stuff. Some more of this, cute beaded and pitberry pick here like we used in pumpkin. Some of this pick from Joanne. Some of this wire jute cord is like a staple from Dollar Tree. Some of this mesh tubing, again, like a staple from Dollar Tree. Some of this raffia as well from Dollar Tree. And then I've got just some, pieces of acorn off of a pick and some of these burlap leaves from Dollar Tree. The first thing I did is kind of laid my Dollar Tree leaf, burlap leaf over the middle of that pumpkin stem and drew on it to cut that out so it can slide right over the top. So my leaf, here's what it looks like. Pop it over the top there. I will go ahead and glue that down. Take one of these sunflowers off. I love these with the little burlap on them. And then another, leaf, wood leaf here. Kind of lay this down so you can see a little better. Wood leaf off of a pick from Joann's. I love these. Almost out of these, but I love that kind of wood flower in this like leaf. I think it's so pretty and the colors match. I'm going to use some of this from Walmart. You could use the moss from Dollar Tree. Before I glue that moss on, I took some of that rope wire from Dollar Tree and kind of wrapped it around the stem and gluing that down. That end will get covered up that we're gluing on the leaf. And I always like mine to come up above the leaf and kind of curl off to the side a little bit. And then we're going to go ahead and add our moss in around the front and the back. I like to add a little bit onto the back too. I don't want the back to be, naked. I want it to have a little bit of something, because most of these things I sell at craft shows, and I just like you all know the front and back to be finished off. And if you're new to my channel, I like the front and back to be finished off. Gonna go ahead and glue this leaf in here and glue our little burlap sunflower on. Add another little pumpkin stem here. Anything you've got that you love working with for fall stuff would look great on your pumpkin here. Leaves and flowers and cute tiny little pumpkins. The little foam or styrofoam pumpkins from Dollar Tree would be cute here. Whatever you have and like. And I'm just kind of gluing that flower in around the back. Here's that raffia. I just kind of tied it into a bow here. It was kind of last minute. I decided, okay, I'll go ahead and use it, because then I wasn't going to use it, and then I was, and I went back and forth. But my glue is still wet enough, from the sunflower and stuff. I can go ahead and kind of pick that up and add this raffia right behind it. You have about a minute for your glue to set up here. I'm going to take some of that mesh tubing. I like to tie a knot in it so it's better for gluing. It's a little too long. I'll shorten it here in a minute. Again, I still have some working time here, because I'm going to move that flower forward and tuck it behind in there. And then I will cut it down. I think I cut it down even a little bit more off camera. I like to have things poking up and stuff sticking out around my stems of my pumpkins. And then going to add in that cute little acorn that kind of left over from a pick I had. Get this moved so you can see again, and just slide it right up underneath there. And then I'm going to add a little pine cone here on the back side just to kind of finish that back side off a little bit. And I've got some really thin twine here. I'm just tying it into a very large looped bow. I'm going to put it to the right side of our sunflower. Add some stuff hanging down. I'm going to take another little clothespin and I'm going to glue it to our happy fall. And then I will glue that into right underneath that sunflower. And that makes this project complete. So I hope you like taking a look back at my favorite pumpkin projects from last year, 2022. Stay tuned, because this year I'm going to have some more fun and exciting fall projects for you. Leave me a comment down below and let me know which project was your favorite, or if you remember watching these from last year, which one do you want to make this year because you didn't quite get around to it last year. Please give this video a thumbs up. And if you're new to my channel, welcome. If you're digging what you saw here today, make sure before you click off, you hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you don't miss out on another video from me. Before I go, I'm going to leave you with one final thought. If you are facing a trial right now, maybe a sickness, depression, loss of a loved one, and it feels like the enemy is using your face like a punching bag, do me a favor and stand your ground. Stand your ground in the name of Jesus. Stand your ground in knowing that Jesus will never leave you. Stand your ground in knowing that Jesus has given you strength, so do not fear. Stand your ground and do not allow the enemy to take you down. You are a child of the Most High God, and He has your protection upon you. He will provide a way out. And yes, it might take some time, but do not give up hope. Stand your ground and know that God will deliver you. He will heal you. He will be your shield and walk with you through the flames, and you will come out victorious the other side. I thank you for sharing your time with me, and I'll talk with you again soon. Bye.